What is going on, guys? And today we are back, and today we are doing something. I don't know if it's different or if I think we might do this in the future. I had a couple people reach out to me, email again, learnmixedgames@gmail.com. And both of these hands were actually Razz hands. The first one we're going to look at today is a deuce to 7 Razz hand. The second one's going to be an ace to 5 Razz hand that was actually played in a live game. So if you guys have any hands that you want to go over, discuss for me to talk about for the most part, I'm more than happy to do that. But this first hand here is going to be a deuce to 7 hand using the Phenom replayer. It can be either, basically, I would say, on Phenom, or if you're like kind of live tournament or something like that, feel free to send one in if you'd like some feedback. What we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and use stud flop draw. We're going to use their stud equity. Again, we're going to use the deuce to 7 Razz portion, obviously, since we're playing deuce to 7 Razz. Our hero here has one hand. This combo is deuce 7 8, which we're going to see how this combo is basically doing going forward in this hand. It's quite an interesting hand, kind of given like the range dynamics, I would say. The first thing here is we're going to look at third street and then just kind of give some, I'd say, assign some ranges here. The ace does bring it in. Obviously, the ace is high in Razz. This is kind of a weird hand in some spots too, so we're gonna like make some assumptions. But the ace does bring it in here, and the 10 folds. The 7's gonna raise. Our hero here with the deuce 7 8, and obviously having a 7 in his hand is actually quite a good card to have because 2 are dead, meaning he's unlikely to pair that one. Again, going forward. So he decides to 2-bet, which I totally agree with. Raj over here decides to 3-bet. Now, one thing I would say generally in low-limit games is that it really depends on your opponent. I mean, I have no idea what his color coding is. But definitely if your opponent is like, say, tight in the situation, you want to narrow it down. If your opponent's like maybe a little bit loose and maybe thinks that you can get the other opponent over here to fold, then 3-betting. If you think the ace is going to call 3-bets here, then you want to 3-bet like probably wide pretty too. And if you call me absolutely crazy in this situation, you would be wrong because the ace decides to 4-bet. So again, in this situation going forward, like, you definitely should have the mindset in this hand of pushing as much equity as you possibly can, because when an ace is putting this much money in, there is now a ton of money to fight over. And if we go over to stud flop draw, we can see like basically even if we assign the range of basically like a very premium kind of combo here, with these like deuce eights, 3 deuce, 4 deuce, etc., he still has less than 10%. So jamming here in a 4-way pot is absolutely catastrophic. Just lighting it on fire. But some people here are here for fun, and if they like to do that, then that's totally fine as well. Now, one thing about this 7 open for the most part here is like maybe he can fold some of his steals. But even then, like, it's kind of close because like the ace is in the hand. But for the most part here, when he decides to just go ahead and 5-bet, yeah, maybe like we'll add in right now just for the sake of adding some of the extra hands where he just says like, whatever, I'm just going to go ahead and 5-bet this hand. Some like 9 draws and stuff. And again, we'll filter this out as it kind of goes, because again, like these wide ranging spots here on 5th First Street are just kind of like whatever. The equities are relatively running close, as we can like see over here. We do technically like have the, a draw against like hands that have like 9s in the range. So we're pushing a little bit of equity, but still we're not like pushing an insane amount of equity by any means. So all right, we're going to look at the 5th Street now, or sorry, 4th Street. So let's go to 4th Street, and it does get capped 5 ways. One thing on Phenom too is like some streets I believe are 5-bet and some are 4-bet. I have to reach out to them because I'm not quite sure which, because you do kind of see that occasionally. But as you can see here, our hero catches extremely good here with the 4 of diamonds. He has the best draw right now, and he is going to be pushing a ton of equity with an ace queen in the hand and another one with a king 7. Again, if we go over to stud flop draw, we will update the boards here because, again, one of the reasons for this hand is this way I can also show you how this is going to work out. 7 catches the 9 of spades, the ace catches the queen of diamonds, and I believe he catches the 7 catches the king of diamonds. So we'll update the simulation at this point right here, and we can see our hero is absolutely printing money here with 60% equity. One thing we have to go back though is basically we have to reduce our hands over here, because I don't think our opponent over here, if he pairs his 9, is raising. So he basically knows if he raises, like when he pairs his 9, like it's probably going to be back capped. And if he does that in that spot, if we actually go into his specific range here and we see like what his hands equity look like, I mean, like if he's jamming here with like 11, 12, 14, 15% equity, that would be not too good. So obviously if he has a pair here, often does he technically pair the high? It's like 12%, but theoretically he's probably should be calling here. So his hand's going to be kind of face up, but I think jamming here would probably jamming here. I mean, he could theoretically. I mean, I don't know if he's ever going to get any folds based on what happened just on 4th Street, or sorry, 3rd Street. So, I mean, I probably would just call, honestly, if I paired the 9. The 4 is just such a good card for your opponent in this situation here. So one thing that we do have to do is I think we just update this a little bit here, and remove the 9s from his paired range, and then just basically filter a little bit more. He's going to be pushing more equity now. So now we go down to about about 59. He has 26 in this situation, and he definitely should be raising. For a couple of reasons. One, if he gets the other players out of the pot, this is a huge win for him in this situation. And unfortunately, I can't turn the other 2 hands off without deleting him, and I don't really want to do that at this point. But basically here, if we go back, the Ace-Queen has less than 2.5% equity, and the King-7 has like 12 and almost like 13. Now, with respect to like, if this street technically gets capped, he's probably getting the right price to call. There is a reverse implied odd situation here. So like mathematically, it's really, really close with the King-7, that is. Let me go back. But again, if it's going to like be capped here, he's just put 5 bets in. And if it does somehow like get jammed 5 bets again, he's technically getting the right price, even like getting a paid price. But there are some reverse implied odds here that I think would be kind of rough. Now, with the fact that your opponent here does catch deuce 4, it's, I think, a little bit tougher here because like sometimes he's going to catch good and you're still like kind of paying off. Again, that's that whole reverse implied dynamic. And we'll just play this out here, but it does go call, and it does go call. Now, in this situation here, this is the, if we go back to stud flop draw, we see that we were pushing here, even against another clean draw at a 9, we're pushing almost 59% equity. This is a spot where you ask your friends, your mom, your dad, whoever you can, to loan as much money as you can and just put all the money in this situation if you can do it. If you go broke in the spot, like, so be it. Go get a job, find this place again, and find this hand again, and go do it again some other time. But you are absolutely printing in the situation, so you just have to jam as much as you possibly can. Our hero elects to call, and in all fairness, like, obviously this is a mistake. When you have an edge like this, you just have to be absolutely jamming it. It doesn't really matter here in the situations, like, do you want to protect your range? Sometimes you pair your 4s, like, I mean, maybe, but you're just, if we go back over to, let's see here. And so what I did over here is now I elected to widen his range a little bit, and we'll get back to it in a second. And the reason I did this is because I want to see, like, what is maybe his 2-bet range looks like, our hero here. This could be a little bit wider too. He could have some like 3-card 10s. Obviously the 10s are kind of dead, so maybe not necessarily, from the start. So this, I think, is like a relatively good range of what he could be 2-betting on 3rd Street. And if we look at the hands, like, the question is how often does he pair the 4? That's the question. And he's going to pair this card right here about 22.7% of the time. So still about 1/4 of this time, he's still going to make a pair in this situation. And when that happens, I mean, like, he's obviously turning his hand face up if that's the case, but still, 3/4 of the time here, he's not. He's going to be still jamming in the situation. I mean, in some sort of like random world, do you want to make the case for it? Maybe. But the fact is like an Ace-Queen's calling here and a King-7's calling here. Like, I don't think you're going to generate that many folds on later streets at this point. I think you just want to just jam up your equity when you have it. And sometimes you turn your hand face up, and I mean, it's kind of like, so be it, so be it. But, you just have to jam, basically, is what I'm trying to say in this situation. All right. And once we call, now we're going to go ahead and see 5th Street. And we absolutely catch another gin card in this situation here. We catch 87 perfect. We make the 10th best hand. And not only that, but we have a redraw at a wheel. We bet again. We get raised again. This is, I think, kind of close. And the reason being is like, if this player didn't pair this 3, it's kind of like unlikely we paired this 3 at this point. The one thing I would say, though, is again, he didn't jam, our hero here didn't jam 4th Street. So, like, I think this raise actually makes some sense. The reason being is because, like, he should have a relatively strong draw. And at the same time, too, we didn't jam. So most of the time here, we don't jam. We actually pair a 4, which means, like, if he does have a 9 with like a 7 draw in this situation, he's actually doing very, very well against us. And now he's pushing the most equity. So, kind of given the hand dynamic here, like, I think this raise is actually okay. But now it's same thing. Like, we have 87 draw with the best redraw. Like, this just becomes an absolute jam and jam and jam. So it does go 2 bets. We 3-bet. It does get 4-bet. And again, this should be a 5-bet if 5-bet's an option. But I think for some reason it might be just a 5-bet scenario. Sorry, a 4-bet scenario. But again, let's go over here and let's update the board's really fast. 4 catches 3 clubs. King catches the 8 of diamonds. and the queen catches the 6, and we can run the simulation. And again, one thing that I would say at this point, like kind of staring at it, we can remove, I would say, the 3s from our opponent's range here now as well. So let's remove these filtered combos of the 3s. Basically, those are his pairs. This is the other 3. There we go. So now we can filter this range again. And I think, like, for the most part, it's kind of standing up. This king 7-8 over here too, we have to remove the pairs as well. The ace queen 6 is kind of whatever at this point. I don't think he has too many pairs, but we can clean it up if we really want to. But he doesn't have any pairs at this point. So again, using the custom filter here, I think this is kind of what it looks like for the most part. And he hasn't folded, so I'm trying to see if there's any other pairs at this point, but I don't think that's the case. The 9... Does he have 9s here? I don't think so. I think at this point he's probably got to fold some 9s if he's got 9-8-7. So I think we've cleaned up his range a little bit more. This makes a little bit more sense. Yeah, I think this is probably good. And then the ace queen, it just doesn't really matter too much. We'll just remove the 6 deuce because I don't think he's calling with 0 equity. But at this point in the hand, he might just be playing the wrong game. I mean, sometimes you just have to figure that in your hand as well. All right. But as we can see here, we are pushing, I mean, like 80% equity. So yeah, like jamming here is the correct option. Which we do. And now here on 6th Street, it gets a little bit more interesting. So one thing that I would say is this 5 for our opponent here is probably, it's a kind of a sneaky good card and a sneaky bad card. It's a good card and a bad card for him. The first thing here is like, if I had the lead here, because 9-4 obviously is supposed to be leading, our hero does check, I would go ahead and lead this street. He's going to pair this 5 a fair bit, and even if we don't have the best hand, we have a redraw at a wheel. If he raises here, it's like not the end of the world. And theoretically here, we have this other hand beat anyways. It's not like this hand could have us beat behind us anyways. So I would totally go for the bet, and he's going to pair this 5, I think, a decent bit as well. 87 perfect here, I think, is too good to go for a check. If we do update the boards and just kind of like look at this scenario here, we catch the 9 hearts. He catches the 5 of diamonds. The ace queen, the king 7-8 catches the, I think it was the 4 clubs. It was the 4 clubs. And the ace queen catches the queen of hearts. So we're going to rerun this sim. Now, on the surface here, it does look like we have about 60% equity, but the other thing that we have to clean out here is I think we have to just clean this out. I think raising, if you're the 9-7-3-5 and you have a pair, I think is probably suicidal at this point. The reason being is because it's just so likely your opponent on the other side has like a 6, a 7, a 5, a 6, a 7, or an 8. 8-4, what's 8-7-5-4? I think this is probably okay if he raises with this one. 5 deuce, probably not raising the 5 deuce. 8 deuce possible. I think these combos are fine, and this basically kind of like, this narrows his range down pretty significantly when we if we bet here and if we check and get bet. So if we look at that situation, he actually pulls ahead on this street because obviously that 5 makes him a wheel at some frequency. It makes him number 3 at some frequency over here. And then like some random 8s or some like deuces, he might think he might have the best hand in this situation. Like, or I'm sorry, an 8 in this situation. I think he would totally bet an 8. Is there another combo here like an 8-7-6, 5-3? I don't, it's hard for him, I think, to have 8-7-6. 8-3, probably not. Just trying to think. 8-4. 8-4 could, oh, 8-4 is in there. So I think the majority of the combos, I think, are in here for the most part. So he actually does pull ahead here. So, you know, this is like one of these spots where you would hate for it to get checked around. But it is interesting to see here that, like, technically his range pulls ahead when he catches that 5. And for what it's worth, no 5s are dead, right? So, you know, it's kind of one of these spots where it's actually probably a little bit better for your range because when you're unblocking the 5, it's more likely that your opponent has it. But man, if it hits him, we definitely are in not great shape at this point too. Again, I would love to kind of note like what this means, because if he's jamming here, we know that when he's jamming over here too, he should have a strong draw, like a 7 draw. So usually it's like some form of 2-4, 2-5, 2-6. And I think that's it. 2, 2, 4, 2, 5, 6. Yeah, I mean, basically like giving him the 7 draw in this situation. So again, it's like a really good card if he smashes it, but at the same time too, if he pairs it, then like we're still pushing it to an equity. Like obviously, if he pairs it, he only has 13%, and basically that means we have 80% going in the river. So I would still go ahead and bet for what it's worth, and then if we get raised, it's kind of like crying, hoping we make the river. And then at this point, I'm not really sure what happens after this, but it goes fold the ace queen. The ace queen queen 6 finally folds. The king 8 7 4 calls. My guess at this point, like staring at this, is he probably has an 8 7 at this point, so he probably does have like deuce 3 or something like that in the hole. Maybe, I mean, he should have a deuce theoretically, but I mean, there are combos where there's not. If we do go over here, I guess I did not remove the force, so this might actually let's remove the force at this point because he should not be calling with pairs. So basically, like, these are the combos that he should have in this situation. So it's probably going to change the equity a little bit when he calls. Now, we don't know that at the time, obviously, because our player checks and he bets, but he still only has like 10%. So, but still, he's getting technically the right price to call here. This pot is just absolutely ginormous looking at it. He's getting something like 33 to 1 or 32 to 1. So calling at this point, at this stage, is correct. A fold here would be obviously catastrophic kind of going in, depending on what he has. And then the river here, I mean, it's a great card for us. We make number 2. And the question here is, should we raise? So what we can do in this spot is we can go over and we can update the board. We're just going to remove this hand now at this point. There's 1-6. We'll leave it up there we'll leave it up because we know he's dead, but at the same time too, it'll keep the dead cards. But our hand over here going in the river spot, we hit a 6. So now if we look at our equity in this spot, we do jump up pretty significantly because now at this point, like, we've made number 2. So anything that our opponent here is probably going to bet, we are still pushing an edge. It's kind of a nightmare if it goes bet, raise, 3-bet. I mean, like, theoretically he could have number 3, but I mean, our board is just so scary at this point. But the other thing too is like, 2 of the 7s are dead, so he might go for bet, 3-bet with just a 7 in general. But I would say, like, with number 2, you just have to go for the river raise for sure. I have seen the end result of this hand. It goes bet, and we do call. There's just too much equity here with number 2. Again, we have 7 6 4 3 2. I mean, it's just one of these spots where you just have to go with raise for number 2 in my mind. And if you run into a wheel, like, you run into a wheel. One thing that I would say, like, a lot of times when there's this much action out here, if part of your opponent's range too is kind of like based on having like some deuces, maybe like again, does he have anything besides 8-4 here? I guess not at this point. He probably just has a deuce. The reason I say that is because, like, if sometimes if you're kind of splitting it in between, like, a lot of the deuces are spoken for also kind of given this action, but when he makes it here on this river, I think, like, he just has usually some sort of big hand. 8 deuce is obviously a possibility as well. So he could be like betting here with I guess he could, like, theoretically have like 6-4-2. He could have maybe made like some backdoor like a6. Is that possible here? 8-6 without the straight. 3-4, 8-4. No, I don't. Trying to think of it out loud. But basically, anyways, when you have number 2, you just have to put the raise, and I think that's just kind of clear. And we get to the river here. We do see, like, this. I mean, he was probably fist pumping on a level you couldn't even believe. Like, he's got 2 of the deuces, 2 of the 7s are dead. He's cut number 3, and he doesn't get raised on the river, and he loses his pot. But yeah, this is one of these situations where I would just go ahead and you got to throw this raise in on the river. But again, this is why we're here learning mixed games. Just kind of talking about it in general. Lovely fact that we have stud flop draw there to help us out as well. So that was the deuce to 7 Razz hand. Let's go over to the ace to 5 hand. All right, this next hand here is, again, an ace to 5 hand. So we're going to go over this. This is in the $400 horse tournament at the Orleans. This is the chainsaw, one of the chainsaw events that they have going on. But we can see here basically the background. This is early-ish $400 tourney, probably 30 big blinds, effective stacks. Way too early to be thinking about maximizing EV. For sure, like, at 30 big blinds, you're just basically playing a cash game. And if you lose a big pot, like, that's fine because, like, you would have, increased your chip lead at that point. So as long as you're playing the right ranges in a lot of these situations, don't worry about, like, ICM implications realistically at this point, unless, you know, you're playing like a no limit tournament, but a lot of these limits, like at 30 bigs, you have plenty of chips to play. The other background for the story, basically, this is kind of like an interesting hand because one, it's he told me that like this is kind of a like the overall hand itself, we don't really know the dead cards, but he said it wasn't like anything major. He said the 4-seat was to bring in, and then probably just a bunch of face cards for the most part. But the 8-seat here is, I would say, a pretty well-known tournament pro. And one of these things going on in this hand is like, you know, even tournament pros you're going to see, I would say, make pretty big mistakes sometimes. And you just have to think to yourself is like, you know, you just gotta, like, I think one of the best things that you can do is like always just keep asking questions. It's one of the most important things that you can do. So the first thing here is like the 6-seat limps with a 7. He says that he was just playing a lot of hands. So we'll go with basically kind of a pretty like wideish range. And then the 9 limps showing a 9. Now the 9 can have a lot of different things here, but if the 6 is the only low card behind, I would expect this pro or this tournament player for the most part to be doing actually some raising with the 9 just to kind of like get him off the 7. If he thinks he's going to get back raised, then limping's probably just fine as well. But also with the 6 behind, I like limping with the 9 for the most part. So I think this is fine. Our hero completes with the ace 4 6 and they both call. So that is 3rd Street. And again, if we go over to 3rd Street over here, we can see that we're basically printing against these ranges for the most part. We have 46.6. The 9, I'm going to give the 9 a pretty wide range in this situation just because I think that this tournament pro thinks that they can do probably play a lot of hands and get away with it. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that for the most part. I think if you see some of these guys playing in these tournaments, then I think a lot of times they can play a bunch of hands. I initially took out the best of the best 9s because I thought he might isolate raise, but I think going back and just kind of thinking about it, I think I'm going to give him the top of his range as well, obviously with a 9. And we added that one back in. And then the 7 over here, this is what I did basically is when the 7 limps and he's got kind of a wide range, I give him kind of like a lot of these fishy-ish hands for the most part, and then like some good mixture of decent hands as well that some will make pairs, some won't, depending on like how it goes, but just kind of a smaller portion of his range. We can see like 16 combos and 16 combos. So like a third of his portion of the range is like good combos, I would say, 7s and under. The other ones are kind of like 8s and 9s. I think that makes the most sense. You know, he could have a couple more like just better hands in general. Just limping a 7 saying like, oh, there's a 6 behind me, I want to limp in. But, you know, for the most part, you can just always open raise like most 7s in a lot of situations, and ace to 5 Razz and just be just fine with it. So the 7 here is going to catch a 4. We're going to update this board real quick. So let's go. The 7 is going to catch a 4. The suits, again, don't matter. The 9 is going to catch a jack. And the 6 is going to catch, we are going to catch a 7. So now if we run this simulation again, the 7-4 does have the lead in this situation. And he goes ahead and bets. Now, I would also, too, again, like, just given the fact that he leads in this situation here, a lot of times players, for the most part, are just going to lead the board. But I do think a lot of these players, if they're just kind of playing these loose passive ways, I do think, like, relatively, they're going to be doing some checking when they pair their 4s, too. So, I mean, I think at some point, I hate to throw it into, like, a total bucket, but I am going to remove the hands where he pairs 4s. I think this is, like, totally fine. You know, we can filter this custom range at this point. But also, too, like, just in tempo, a lot of times when you have the lead, a lot of times you're just leading, and players just do this. But also, too, you have to think to yourself when the 6 completed and, like, there's a 7 out there and this player catches a 7, that our hero here is going to be doing a ton of raising in this spot. You know, like, maybe not against this player, but especially the Jack-9 calls. And this is just a normal thing that you should be doing a lot of times in these spots. If you have the ability to squeeze someone in these stud hands, you should absolutely be squeezing them, making them punish. Like, even if this person has like an 8 draw over here and this Jack decides to call, you can see here he only needs 33%. He's getting like 37. If the Jack's going to call here, he should be absolutely jamming. And then the threat of the jam behind you should basically, you should need to fold this Jack-9 every time, because basically the 7-4 bets here, the Jack-9 calls, which is a massive mistake. And now the 6-7 decides to raise, which again is correct. This play is good. And they both call. As according to, again, we can see over here in this situation, the 7-4 bets, the Jack-9 calls, and the Jack-9 calling here is the big mistake for the most part. And now, again, our hero raises and it goes call, call. So now on the next street, we can update these boards again. The 7-4 is going to catch a 10. The Jack-9 is going to catch a 3. And the 6-7, our hero here, is going to catch a queen. And we're going to run the simulation again. And again, we've removed all those 4s because I don't think our opponent here has any 4s. The other thing, too, here is now it's going to go bet by the 7-4, 10. The Jack-9, 3 calls. We can, again, remove the, I think, the pair of 3s. Again, every single street and every single bet, you need to reevaluate what's going on, because now we can basically say, like, he didn't pair these 3s going forward. He shouldn't, realistically, especially because he'd be drawing almost like dead to a 7 draw plus a 10 low. But still in this situation, like, now when he gets here in this pot with the Jack-9, 3, he has much more equity than the last street. There's a fair bit of money in the pot, but again, if our hero here has what he should be having in this situation, which he does have ace-4, but he does have a really good 7 draw, he should theoretically be raising against these like kind of weaker-ish, this weaker-ish 7 range for the most part, and this player behind who has a Jack draw plus 9 draw. On 5th Street here, he is printing money. And if we go back to the hand history, we see that the 6 leads, again, just kind of in tempo. He has the low. And this is one of these situations, too, where sometimes, like, you don't necessarily recognize your equity, because a lot of spots, like in this situation, it could easily just go check, check, bet, call, call. But by betting here in this situation, too, the 7-10-4, like, is kind of squeezing the Jack-9, 3, because theoretically here, the Jack-9, 3 should be folding again if he's going to get squeezed again, in my mind. So, he does go ahead and bets in tempo. The Jack-9, 3 does call, and the Queen 7-6 does call again. His initial thing for the email was basically saying, this is like, you know, do I play his hand correctly? And yeah, like this squeeze is great, as we can see over here against like the ranges that we basically give our opponents here. Like, we don't think he's going to have too many, you know, 7-4 draws. And even if we go back, there's some over here. And even if we look at the combinatorics here, right? Draw, sorry. If we look at the draw in this situation too, like, he's going to have 8 fairly frequent, a 9 fairly frequent, and then the 7's about 22%. Now, even if we change the range up a little bit to make sure, like, they're not pairs, and he has a little better draw than us, so let's do this, right? So, like, ace-5, even deuce-5, and maybe give him one more combo of, like, ace-3, right? So in this situation too, if he had some stronger range as well, if he didn't decide to limp in here, we're still doing, like, pretty good against this range if we think it's majority capped like 8s and 9s. If we look over at the hands again and we look over at the draws, even in the situation here, you know, like the 7s, he's only going to have it about just under 40%. And then the other 2 times he's going to have like 8s and 9s. Again, if you're playing against a player who's just playing a ton of hands, this is just a really good thing to learn, because again, if they're playing a lot of hands and the range is really wide, like, yeah, you should be jamming up this 7 draw here for sure. And that was one of the main questions he had for us, is does he elect to go for the correct raise in this situation? And it is yes. And obviously, like, looking at the next street here, it's going to be pretty, like, cut and dry depending on what he catches. But at the same point too, like, oh, sorry, that's wrong hand. It's really gonna be cut and dry, like, what he catches on the next street. But yeah, like, when you're pushing this much equity, you just have to go for the race. And our hero elects to do that. Now on 6th Street, I don't think there's really too much to say about this afterwards, because what happens here on 6th Street is our hero catches a 3, and now he makes a 7-6. And the 6th Street catches a king, and then the 8th seat catches a queen, and the 1 seat's going to lead, the 6 seat's actually going to fold, and now the well-known, I would say, tournament pro decides to call. Now, there's a lot of money in this pot too, but I mean, one thing that's definitely going against him is when we catch the 3, when we keep raising the 7-6, right? When we keep raising the 7-6 in this situation, basically what we're saying is we have a 7 draw. Now, if you're looking for the combos to fold this hand where you don't think, like, he's basically saying, the other thing too is like the 9 Jack 3 queen in this spot is drawing at a 9 to try to improve to beat the queen, and he has to pair this 3. In these situations, what is it? I think it's a conditional probability that everything goes our way is just like the reverse implied odds of calling 2 extra streets here is kind of a nightmare. So if you want to look at the situations, like, probably having one of the cards in your hand where he catches that's unpaired is probably even, like, more beneficial. Now, what we're going to do in this situation is we'll go back, and what we'll do is we'll update the boards again. The 7-10-4 will actually remove that hand. We'll go to 7-10-4 king. We'll put that over here. Jack 9-3 catches a queen, and the queen, we catch a 3. Now, one of the things, again, what we want to do in this situation is we want to look at all the hands, basically, that, well, yeah, we had ace-4. So we're going to change the range here. All the hands that are basically 7 draws on the previous street. Ace-5, 5-2, 4-2, 3-2, 4-3, 3-5, 4-5, and I believe that is it. Aces, those are all pairs. Those are all, so there's 3s in there as well. Okay, that looks about right. So now in this situation, yeah, he's just like, he's not getting, so it looks like theoretically he might actually be getting the right price in this situation given the dynamics. But the problem is again, 1, there's reverse implied odds. 2, even if we don't have, even if he does have the best like draw to improve, because he doesn't have the best hand here, right? Like in this situation here, no, that's true. No, that's not true. Queen, say, I mean, when he pairs the 3 in this situation, basically what he's saying is, he's under the impression that he paired the 3. Therefore, if he pairs the 3, he has a queen 7. So basically, we have to, we have a jack right now, which means we could be we could be winning. But given the fact that we block the 3 and he catches the 3, it's just so likely in this situation we're drawing dead. And remember, like if he catches this one, he's just drawing dead. So, I think in this spot he just has to. I think the person over here was the Jack 9-3 queen, is just a pretty clear fold at this point. Now, if there was a slightly different situation, and let's see if we update it, instead from catching a 3, say we catch a 4 and he basically like unblocks it, right? So if we want to go back here and we catch a 4 instead, how much does this change the equity? I think that's one of the better questions. We actually have more equity in this. We about have the same equity for the most part. So still, like when he catches like this 7, kind of looks like a nightmare card for us. Yeah, I mean, like there's, I guess the 4's dead. How about a 5? I don't think it's going to change that much, but a card that isn't dead, because one of the 4's was dead. So let's do this. Let's do a 5. And it does jump up a little bit here. So like now it's a little bit closer, honestly, given the price. But I think like 87 is a little bit too high. 12% is probably a little bit too low. Kind of looking at the math again, it's like the whole reverse implied odds. But I think when his equity here jumps up to 18, this is probably like close to the right call. But again, when he catches a card that he has in his hand and we catch the 3 as opposed to the 5, again, we're just kind of like looking around at the range. I think he just has to give up. If we do go back here real fast, we give ourselves a 3 again, and then we can look at the specific hands, basically seeing like how often do we pair. Yeah, how did the 4 card here? Sorry, made hand. How often do we basically pair the queen? Yeah, I mean, like it's a combinatoric thing, right? Like 28% of the time we basically have a queen where we pair the 3, kind of given our range in this situation, but that doesn't necessarily matter as much for the fact that like if we hit our hand going into the river, we can basically catch, if he pairs and keeps the jack, then we can make like any jack or better to win. And at the same time too, we can still like, if he makes a 9, we can still make a better low to win as well. So I think like his hand, basically given the fact that we catch the 3 here, I think he probably should fold with the reverse implied odds going forward. But if he catches kind of like the card that is not dead, if we catch the cards that's not dead, meaning we're more likely to pair it, it's probably a little bit closer, to be completely honest. I think going back to this hand though on 4th Street for the most part, 4th Street probably was a pretty clear fold given the fact that he had like 5%, given the ranges here too. Most likely that he was also going to be facing a squeeze. But yeah, I mean, that was kind of an interesting hand. Basically what happens here, if we go back to the hand itself, it looks like on 7th Street is completely inconsequential. He makes a 6 and the 8 does, the other person does call as well. So maximum value for the hand. I think you played this hand. I think our hero here played it perfectly, actually. Right equities on the right streets, jamming it up with the best draws, making the right reads on ranges, and, you know, even like having the fortitude, basically seeing someone who he's probably seen a fair bit on TV play, sending in is like, hey, I think this is a mistake, you know, can we talk about it a little bit? And yeah, like absolutely. I think his intuition was right here. And this is one of those spots where sometimes I've always said this, and I said this with Chris a lot of times when we do our hand histories together, is, you know, a lot of times when you see a well-named pro doing something, don't necessarily assume that they're wrong. Assume that they're right, and then I would go back and try to reverse engineer it and prove that they're wrong. Because if you do it in that situation there, you can always like question yourself too. Like I think a lot of people when they first start playing Badoogie, and they watch some of the high limits, and a lot of players are like, opening or even like deuce to seven, like opening drawing four, thinking like, oh, they're just like going crazy playing heads up. Like, no, it's actually correct to open four and play heads up. But there's rake factors and other thing involved in there too. But for sure, like it's something that's might be a little bit out there to kind of think about, but always adjust your thinking. I can't stress that enough. I think it's one of the more important skills in poker. All right, guys. Well, that's what I got so far. Again, if you want to use Stud Flop Draw, go over to studflopdraw.com. Tell them Learn Mixed Games sent you. I thank both players for sending in the hands. And if anybody has any questions or comments, or if you have any hands that you would like to send them into learnmixedgames@gmail.com. I'll try to do this once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks, something like that, depending on how many people send their hands in. I will always probably give precedent to the people who are playing on Phenom first. Again, that's just kind of my deal. So if you're playing on Phenom, record it and send it in, like even one hand history, or use the hand history replayer. I will probably put that at the top of my list. And if you guys do have any interesting hands from like tournaments or something like that too, we can always talk about. But again, this was from a tournament, but again, they were so deep relatively that it didn't matter. There's no ICM implications or anything like that at this point to really discuss. But as always, guys, thank you for watching. Questions or comments or feedback, leave them below. Until next time, good luck at the tables. Play well. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.